STV's political editor Colin Mackay is at the party conference in Aberdeen and he spoke to us earlier.
I think the mood of this conference is a bit downbeat, but it's not depressed. But I mean, that's kind of inevitable after the drubbing that the SNP have just had in the Rutherglen by-election. I think it's probably the smallest conference for the SNP that I've seen in a decade, but they've had one of their biggest debates in donkey's years on the independence strategy. They've ditched Nicola Sturgeon's de facto referendum for the next general election. Now instead, the SNP want to take a majority of Scottish MPs as a mandate for negotiations with the new UK government over independence, possibly leading to another independence referendum. But that hasn't worked since 2015. So what makes the SNP think that's going to work now? Well, I'm joined by the Cabinet Secretary for the Wellbeing Economy, Neil Gray. Neil, why do you think that's going to make a difference now? But first of all, before we get to that, tell me what your new strategy is for independence.
Well, it's absolutely clear. You've already set it out. We need to move away now from the process, which we've set out and is clear. A majority of seats means we start negotiations with the UK government. And that has been the position of the SNP previously. It's only because of the relative success of the SNP at recent general elections that people are questioning whether or not that should be our strategy now. But what I'm keen for us to do is now to stop talking about process. If there are questions about process, those are now questions for the UK government as to whether or not they will respect the votes of the people of Scotland now. We need to get on and talk about the why of independence, and that is what I'm very much looking forward to hearing from the First Minister about tomorrow.
And we will come to that. But you've had a majority of Scottish MPs since 2015. There have been no negotiations because the UK government, 4 or 5 Prime Ministers now, have just simply ignored you.
And again, I say that is a question for UK ministers, whichever colour they may be, whether they're Tory or Labour, to come to whether or not they're going to respect democracy in Scotland. Because this is this is not an inconsequential.
But what do you do if they don't? What do you do if they don't, like
that.
They haven't since 2015 then?
I'll come to that because there is an important part of the strategy that touches on that. But this is not an inconsequential issue. These are votes that have been cast in Scotland, MPs that have been elected, sent to Westminster with a particular mission. That mission, if they're SNP MPs, is to realise the ambitions of the people of Scotland to see the decision over our constitutional over our constitutional future. The additional route that we now have, the additional element that we now have, is the Constitutional Convention. So if we do have a situation where, whether it's a Labour government or Conservative government, and I'm looking forward to your interviews, Colin, with those representatives and posing that question to them about whether or not they will respect the mandate that has been given by the people of Scotland, that they have disrespected since 2015.
So you now have experience of them disrespecting it. What do you do about it?
Well, this is, again, I say, this is a question for UK politicians as to whether or not they're going to respect democracy. If they continue to oppose...
And so far, you would accept that they haven't. So what do you do about it?
I've just said, we have a support for a constitutional convention which brings people of Scotland together, civic Scotland together, on a debate and a discussion around where our future goes, around ensuring that we can maximise the powers that are here in Scotland with a view towards independence as well. I think that is an important involvement of the people of Scotland in our constitutional debate.
Now today we saw Nicola Sturgeon, still the darling of the SNP conference, despite the mess that she seems to have left the party in, and that's something that came up on the doorsteps of Rutherglen, wasn't it?
That's not something that I heard from people when I was in Rutherglen, but obviously Nicola Sturgeon is incredibly popular. She has been an incredibly successful leader for our party and for our country. She left office as being an incredibly popular politician. She leaves behind her a legacy of success. I mean, the Scottish Child Payment alone has been transformational, never mind other aspects that she brought forward. So I'm not surprised that she received an incredibly warm welcome here at conference today.
Well, let's turn to Humza Yousaf now. It's his first big conference speech as leader tomorrow. What can we expect from him?
I'm looking forward to him setting out his vision for the coming years in government. I know there are, I hope to hear a number of announcements that will, I hope,
what kind of thing are we going to get?
I can't
You could.
I couldn't, but I shouldn't. I can't upstage the First Minister, the announcements he's going to be making tomorrow. But I'm hoping that this is going to be a conference speech that will not just excite colleagues and friends in the conference hall, but will also resonate with the people of Scotland. I think, and the First Minister absolutely has been resonating, not just with the people of Scotland over the last week, but has shown international leadership on the biggest issue of the day worldwide in his response to the situation unfolding in the Middle East. And he has to be absolutely commended, him and Nadia, for the work that they've done over the last week for that.
But you think tomorrow he has to focus on delivery, domestic delivery, schools and the NHS?
Not just me that thinks that, he believes that as well. Delivery is an absolute watchword for him in government, and I know that that will be a central part of his conference speech. Obviously a vision.
Because there's a reputation the SNP has to rebuild in government there, isn't there?
Well, I think we've got a very strong record of delivery. You just have to look at the steps behind us in this conference hall around
or
the
anybody
areas
else, or any of your opponents would say, well, look at Greenock and the 2 boats that haven't been delivered.
Well, obviously there are issues that have been at play that have been somewhat out of control of government that have been at play there. But you just have to look at the steps going up to the meeting rooms upstairs to see the record of delivery we have. The baby box, the Scottish child payment, the record levels of employment that we have had in Scotland, as well as the investment that we're continuing to make in our green economic transformation that I'm very proud to be part of.
How does he bring independence back to life? How does he breathe new life into your independence campaigning?
Well, we need to be talking about the why of independence. We need to get off the process point, and I think having that decision of conference on Sunday was an important moment, and making sure that we're moving on from process. We're very clear about what our process is, talking about the why of independence and making it relevant to people's lives. You know, people try to pretend that the constitutional issue and the cost of living crisis are separate discussions. They are absolutely intrinsically linked, and we need to continue making that point, that we are energy rich, but we have high levels of fuel poverty because we do not have full control of our vast energy resources. That is what independence helps to deliver, making tangible differences to the people of Scotland.
Neil Gray, thanks for joining us in Scotland tonight.